Welcome to episode 23 of the Painting Experience podcast. On the podcast, founder Stewart Cubley explores the potential of the emerging field of process arts and shares inspiration from his ongoing workshops and retreats. In this episode, Stewart talks about what happens when we don't want to paint something that seems to be asking for expression, and the power available to us when we go ahead and paint it anyway.
There's an experience that I've come to recognize in the painting process where we're certain that we don't want to paint something. And it happened to me recently in working with a painter. She paused and was a little stuck and wasn't sure what to paint next. And then something came to her to paint. And her first statement to me was, "Oh no, I don't want to paint that." That's very interesting because this happens again and again and again in the process where something comes to us and we're very certain we don't want to paint it. We can be quite adamant about not wanting to paint it. And it has to be treated very gently, obviously, and explored because what's going on here? I mean, here we are in our innocence and openness, painting spontaneously, not having a goal, not trying to achieve something. It's moving along at its own pace, and all of a sudden we reach a blockage, and we're not quite sure what to do next, and then something comes to us, and we find it objectionable. And so our first reaction is, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to paint that. And it's important to treat it gently because there's something deeper going on here. We have to be careful not to turn it into a should be. Because we object to it, we should paint it. There is something interesting about the fact that the very objection to it is, on some level, a call towards it. But we have to feel that, and we have to act on it in the right way. So, after she explained to me all the reasons she didn't want to do it, in this particular instance, there was a figure, a human figure, and there was a man in kind of a slumped over position with a lot of emotion. And when she saw this next step, which had to do with having tears come down, and she said, "I don't want to do the tears." And then she explained to me all the reasons why. They're so predictable. I've done them before. I don't want to go down that road. What does it mean? What would people think about me? They're going to think I'm a sad person. There's all these reasons not to do it. So after kind of hearing all those, I asked her a question. How would you feel if you didn't do it? That stopped her. It was a long silence, and then she realized, I cannot not do it. That's really interesting because here on one hand there's this objection to doing it and not wanting to paint these tears and all that would mean, and it's uncomfortable. But on a deeper level, when she listened, she realized, I cannot not do it. I cannot go forward with this painting with integrity and with keeping my interest alive without doing it. And so it's a very interesting juxtaposition between these two parts of ourselves. There's a great quote from the poet David White that I like very much, where he says, "The act of writing poetry is like overhearing yourself say something you didn't want to know you knew." And there's something about painting that's very similar because listening has consequences. When you stop and come to the edge of your own being and enter the state of not knowing, which is really the source of the creative force itself, things come to you. And they come to you from another dimension. This is not the preferences of the self and the sense of achievement and all of the more superficial aspects of consciousness. This is coming from an intelligence that resides in the mystery and resides in that which is beyond our conscious self. And it has consequences. To listen to that means we're going to be moved by that. And the very fact that we object to something that comes from that other dimension is really more of an indication of our proximity to it. And of course, there's resistance to it because it means kind of going beyond ourselves in order to paint it. It means entering an area where we don't know what's going to happen. We have to let go of our opinions about it and go swimming in this stream that we don't know where it's going to take us. And of course, there's something incredibly fascinating and exhilarating about that. And at the same time, taking that leap requires some courage. So I think it's important to realize that when we engage the creative process, when we engage this quality of listening and exhibit a kind of interest in what might show up, and don't impose our own will on it and our own necessity that it look a certain way and that it turn out a certain way, we're going to come up against things that we think we don't want to do, but actually we do want to do. It's something that must be painted. Not because it should be painted, but because it must be painted. I cannot not paint it. And so then it becomes a very different journey in which we have this relationship with a part of ourselves and an intelligence that truly is not within our control. It's not something that we can predict and that we can somehow mold to turn out the way that we want it to turn out. It's much more interesting than that and much wilder than that. And I must say, much more satisfying than that. Giving over by being willing to follow, by being willing to give form in this magic way that painting process has, we feel more grounded. We feel more like we've inhabited ourselves. For me, this is really the purpose of process painting, nurturing that relationship with that force that's beyond the conscious mind, beyond the individual self, beyond this little position that we take and feel often so limited by.
You can learn more about the painting experience and find a list of upcoming process painting workshops by visiting our website at www.processarts.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please share it with a friend. The theme music for this podcast comes from Stefan Jacob. We thank you for listening and hope you'll join us again soon.